244,000 jobs created in the US in April, non-farm payrolls numbers coming through. And I know that you're quite optimistic about these numbers, but I did find a negative point in this. I went and looked for one.
Well done.
It wasn't so difficult to find. But tell me about these numbers. What do they mean to you?
Everybody
And
thought they were
rising
going to be
tonight.
terrible, right? Because we had a disappointing ADP number. We had a disappointing initial claims number early in the week. So all the bears were building up for a big down day today. Big reversal because that number came in stronger. They're expecting like 170, 245. And the interesting thing about it is that notwithstanding some big net losses in the public sector in the US, private sector hiring is quite strong, which of course the bulls, myself included, were expecting because corporate profits have been strong and you can't ultimately keep on growing profits if you're not hiring
So were the McDonald's jobs included in this to the tune of about 57,000 jobs?
Yes, and you know, a Mac job is a great job.
Really?
And everybody wants to flip burgers, and they had 1 million applicants for those 62,000 jobs. So.
Well, that's amazing because I found that if you're wondering what the negative number is within the space, Labour participation rate for April standing at unchanged 64.2%, and we know it's still sitting at 25-year highs.
So in other words, this is a number of people that are kind of actively participating in the economy because, you know, there's this thing about discouraged workers. In the US, that number is relatively small. In a country like South Africa, it's huge because people have given up trying to find a job. But I think the big picture takeaway here is that the US economy is recovering. That's why the market is up so strongly. It's like, you know, there's only one interpretation.
Sorry, you sound like a broken record. Is there something I could turn
There's
to
only one
your
takeaway
rhetoric?
from this data. Only one, and that is that it's good news from here onwards.
Okay, fantastic. Sasol, some news out. We know that Pat Davies is moving on as CEO and a different person coming to the fore, David Constable.
Yes. Now, I mean, there's nobody watching this. It's a Friday afternoon, right? So I can say what I really think.
Well, no, there are people watching, but please say what you think.
Speaking on behalf of white men everywhere, you know, I think we're all thrilled with the appointment. It's fantastic. You know, this is the best candidate for the job. There's no question. This is marvelous.
Moving on swiftly.
What do you mean?
A random stock okay, we're going to do this new theme on Mad Markets. It's called picking a random stock to try and get Paul very nervous. I picked number 225 out of 381 stocks on the JSE and number 225. And I promise you, Paul did not
pick them
have
out of
any
the
idea.
top 20.
No, of
Those
course I'm going
ones
to pick
are
the bottom ones because you don't know about, you know, the bottom ones obviously smaller market cap. ZCI.
ZCI, oh no, that's an easy one. That's Zambia Copper Investments. But interesting thing about it is that it was a cash shell for quite a while. It had a residual stake in a copper operation up in the Zambian environment, and it has recently done a capital raising. And the best thing about it is that the CEO is Taste Toy, who's the previous head of Coronation Investment Management, very well-respected guy in the markets. Although it's still kind of in its infancy. They're talking about injecting some copper assets into it. I don't know where it trades, but if you really are out there, if Metarex is not, you know, volatile enough for you, that's one to consider.
That's very, I'm very shocked and impressed with you. Well done. Joke of the day, Paul.
Well, again, no one's listening to this, so we can basically say whatever we like. So apart from coming back to David Constable, apparently he is not only well qualified for the job in terms of having been the previous vice president of Fluor Corporation, which is a major global engineering concern, he is also an executive director of the Boy Scouts of America. Now, the only thing that's worse than being involved with the Boy Scouts is being involved with the Catholic Church, apparently. But even more exciting, and continuing with that theme, you saw that Jeff Van Rooyen was appointed non-executive director at Pick n Pay. And I noticed with much amusement that after he left the Financial Services Board, he was running an organization called Uranus Investments, which, you know, that's got to be a great name. Who on earth would pick as the name of their company Uranus Investments?
So it's been an interesting week or two. We had a prince and a princess getting married. We had the bad guy killed. It's something out of a Disney movie, it seems. Paul, next week, what are you looking at?
You know, it would be fabulous if we could just get a little bit of stability with regard to commodity prices, because I think that's really the theme of the week. We had all that stuff with silver, you know, oil falling out of bed. But for our market, it's particularly important important that these markets begin to find a level which is dictated by supply and demand instead of dictated by this kind of speculative stuff and margin adjustments and all the other nonsense.
And of course, then that means that your notion of all the bullishness and the good news will then come into play. Hopefully we do see the volatility
Sounds
going
good.
away, Paul. Right. Thank you so much for joining us.